What is up, everyone? My name is Mr. J, and today I'm bringing you a Digimon deck profile. So Zuki got back-to-back first places locals with Phoenixmon X, and he's going to run us through the deck profile.
Yeah, so we're going to start off with the eggs really quickly, and I'll go through a couple combos for you guys so you guys can have a good understanding of how to play the deck in case you want to play it yourself. But you run 4 of the Yoko eggs. This egg is extremely important for the combo. On deletion, you get to grab one of their archetypes, so bird, avian, and so on and so forth, and you add it back to your hand. And the reason why this is so important is because it triggers your tamers, and I'll show you guys the combos later, but just know that this is super vital to your plays and a very good starter to a lot of your combos. So in terms of the rookies, we are playing 4 Biomons. This is from EX1. It doesn't have an on play or anything like that. The inheritable is when attacking, draw 1 card. So great way to go through your deck as quickly as possible. We also are playing 4 of the BT11 Biomons. This one is super important to the strategy because it's able to grab both a tamer and one of its archetypes. So it specifically grabs a red vaccine. So that's literally everything in the deck. It won't miss ever. So you run 4 copies of this, and then the inheritable is on deletion, gaining memory. So that does come up on both players' turns. So just know that you can trigger this during either player's turn. Then the brand new Biomon that we just got, which is the BT16 Biomon. At the start of the main, you can discard a card, and when you do, you can discard a beast, bird, avian, their archetype, and once you do, you can search the top 4 cards of your deck and grab a red card. Hint, hint, everything is red, so you won't miss anything with this as well, and it helps you cycle through your deck pretty fast. So that's it for the rookies. We run exactly 12, and then on to the champs. We are running 3 of the new BT15 Birdramon. When Digivolving, you can grab a card from the trash. So as you can see, it's a reoccurring thing of just grabbing things from the trash. So this is going to also trigger your Sora. And also it has the inheritable of when you remove a card from security, you gain a memory. This also has the same effect. So a lot of times when you swing and it doesn't die, you can gain back 2 memory to extend the plays on your turn. Then we are playing the BT11 Birdramons. This one is just a really good card. It doesn't have an on play or anything like that, but it is a blocker, so that does come up because it can protect you from being able to lose the game. On top of that, the inheritable is on deletion, you can play out a tamer, and playing out tamers is very important in this deck because they are the enablers to allow you to do everything in your deck. So for the last champion, we are playing Saberdramon. Very, very good card. Now, I was always on the fence about how many copies of this to run, but I think the 1 copy is really good. And the reason why is because, just like I was explaining earlier, you're allowed to grab whatever card that you want from searching, and you're also able to grab back any cards from your trash, from the egg, from the Birdramon, and other effects like that. So if this gets hit out of security or you discard it early on, you can always grab it back and use it whenever you need to, so you can run into any stack that might be a problem. So that's it for the champs. Now we're on to the ultimates. We are running 2 of the Gerudo Aces. Same philosophy as before. You can search them, you can grab them, so you don't really need a whole lot of copies of these. The effect is on play or when Digivolving, you can play out a tamer, and if you play out a tamer, you're able to delete a blocker. This has such a great matchup into bunnies. It has a great matchup into quite a few different decks. You won't believe just how much this card pops up and forces their opponent to have to reevaluate if they need blockers in their line, because you're able to pop their line and then force them to have to reset. So this card is extremely powerful. And on top of that, it helps you play out the tamers, which you can loop, and I'll show you guys how to loop the tamers in a bit. The next Gerudo we're playing is the This is BT16's Garudamon. Now, this one kind of goes with Christie, but you can also use this one to play out your Akio. Akio is your most important tamer. You run 4 copies of her. His effect is on play or when digivolving, you can play out a cost 3 tamer from your hand. And then on his inheritable is on deletion, delete a 6K or less Digimon on your opponent's side of the board. Now, the last ultimate that we are running is 4 copies of the brand new BT16 Garudamon X Antibody. This effect is extremely loaded, so I'll try to go through it in a couple pieces. The first one is on play or when digivolving, and that's very important because you can play out your bodies for free. But on play or when digivolving, you're able to grab one of the archetype from the graveyard and add it back to your hand. When you do that, you can trigger your Saurus effect to bounce herself back to hand and then play out a body. When that happens, his once per turn effect can happen, which is you can target a Digimon, either himself or something else, to give it rush for the turn. So super impactful because that helps you chip out your opponent's security as quickly as possible. And then his inheritable is absolutely insane. On deletion, you can trash your opponent's security. So this makes it super, super powerful because you're able to trigger all of your on deletions effect with the new Phoenixmon, which I'm going to explain in just a bit. But this is it for the ultimates. We run exactly 7. So 7 ultimates, 7 champions, 12 rookies. And now on to the megas. We are running 3 of the BT11 Phoenixmon. Its effect is when a card is removed from security, you can play out one of the birds equal to 3K and then add 2K for every single tamer that you have on board. And then on deletion, you can play out a bird doing the same effect that I just explained. So this one just helps you spit out more bodies so you can give it rush for the turn and then chip out your opponent's security. We are running 1 copy of the BT15 Phoenixmon. Same reason as I said before, you can always cycle through it through your deck, so if you ever need it, you can just grab it. And on top of that, you can constantly recycle it. Its on play and on deletion effect it depends on how much security your opponent has. If your opponent has 4 or more security, when this dies, it trashes the security. And then on deletion or on play, if they have 3 or less, you can delete the lowest play cost on your opponent's side of the board. This comes up a lot. And it won me quite a few different games because the Phoenixmon, at the end of the attack, the new X Antibody one, you play out an 11K Digimon. So you'll play this out, get the on play effect, and then delete a line if you want to.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah. So then the MVP, the star of the deck, is the Phoenixmon X Antibody, and I've been alluding to it all the video, but this has quite a bit of text, as you can see, so I'm gonna go through it as quickly as possible. When digivolving, it gains Blitz, and then if you digivolve over a Phoenixmon, it gains the end of attack, trigger all of your on deletions effects. So not just his on deletion effect, but all of your entire line. As you can see, a lot of the the lines want to die. So when you attack, you can trigger all of their on deletions effects, even if they don't die. So his on deletion effect is you get to play out a Phoenixmon, and then you can pop something equal to or less than its DP. So you can play out the Phoenixmon, pop something off of his effect, and then Phoenixmon effect will pop another thing on their side of the board. So you get a lot of control with this deck because you're able to spit out your megas for free just for attacking. So that's it for the Digimons. So on to the options. We have 4 of the offensive training. You absolutely need this until we get to BT17. BT17, we get access to the scramble cards. So you might want to mix and match between the offense training and the scrambles. But for right now, you want to run 4 copies of this. It helps you build up your line the same turn, and it also allows you to be able to search for more pieces. The deck has a lot of consistency, so you're able to grab whatever pieces that you need, because again, you're only playing one color, so everything is a hit within the deck. And again, it helps you build out your line quickly as possible. This is probably one of the best options in the deck. It is called Wings of Love. What it does is allow you to play out a 4-cost tamer or less. And then if you have Sora on your side of the board, you can bounce her, you can grab a card from the trash and add it back to your hand, and that'll trigger your Sora to allow you to play out a body again. So super impactful card. And then the security effect is you can play out a Biomon from your hand to trash, and then you add this card to your hand. So it's an extremely powerful card. Then for defensive options, we have the 4 Crimson Blazes. You kind of need it right now in this current format. Numamon is just extremely strong. It really controls the meta. So if you don't have a way to be able to deal with Numamon, you just straight up just lose to the deck. So you kind of got to run this as your defensive option. Outside of that, you can pop lines and things of that nature with your Phoenixmon and things of that nature, but this is an absolute must when they're doing that early chip damage before you get your Phoenixmon on board. And on to the Tamers. We are running 4 copies of Akio. Her on-play effect is search the top 4 cards of your deck and grab a red vaccine Digimon and add it to your hand. Again, just more search power in the deck. Like I mentioned before, it has a lot of search power, so you're able to grab whatever you need in your deck and always have the line that you want. And then during your turn, when you play a Digimon by a card effect, you can tap this tamer to give it a rush for the turn. Yeah. So she's super important to the strategy because she needs to, this is how you make it so all those birds that you play out on the same turn are able to do chip damage and then trigger their on deletion effects and constantly keep recursion things. And then the second most important tamer in the deck for sure is Sora. And the only reason why we want 2 copies of this is it's pretty tight space, but it does come up quite a bit, and you can grab it off your Biomons, you can grab it off your offensive trainings and stuff like that. So you can always find her whenever you need it. Its effect is that when you grab a card from your trash and add it back to your hand, you can bounce this tamer back to your hand and play a 13k or less Digimon, but it's minus 2k for every security your opponent has. So at minimum, you can play a 3k, and then at the most, you can play a 13k, right? So she's super important because you're going to keep bouncing her back to play out birds, and then Akio is going to tap herself to give it rush, or you're going to use the Gerudo X antibody to give it rush. Okay. Now, just a quick combo tutorial to let you guys know. This and Sora, these 2 together, will give you any bird that you want and rush. So when Digivolving, he'll pop something on your opponent's side of the board equal to his DP or less. And then once you do, you'll grab something from your graveyard and add it to your graveyard, your trash, and add it back to your hand. That'll trigger the Sora's effect to bounce herself back to hand. And then you play out the bird. So let's just use this as an example. Now, because this effect is happening the same time that this is happening, you can choose the order sequence in whatever order you want. So this would happen first to play out the body, and then his effect can happen to give it rush. So that way you can do potentially 2 damage in that same turn. And another important tidbit is you don't have to necessarily use your Akios immediately if you have Gerudo X on the board, because potentially you have 8 ways to give rush in this deck. So you got the 4 of these and the 4 of these. So try to always make sure you utilize this first if you can before you use the tamers, because once they get tapped, you can't untap them until the start of your next unsuspend phase. And that's pretty much the deck. It starts off a little complicated, and it's going to be a lot of order sequencing, so it's a little complicated, but once you start picking up the pieces and understanding what you're doing, it's a straightforward deck.
Yeah, I have some questions. You've obviously placed first twice. How do you deal with Rapid and Magna X? Because I mean, those are like gatekeepers of the format. It's either that or you're fighting against Numemon, top tables. What's your strategy? What's the strengths of the deck?
So one of the things that gives you a really good edge against the Rapid X matchup is that a lot of times they play the Mega Galgamon, and he has blocker, which allows you to be able to pop with the Garudamon X. So when they swing, you can blast, and then you can drop a tamer and pop their line, and then they're overflow. So they'll lose their turn, and you got a free tamer. So if you drop the Sora or Akio, you can potentially set up for the following turn to, go for some aggro and things of that nature. For the Rapid Mons that don't run the ace, you can deal with it before they get to that point, because all of the other Rapid Mons tend to have blocker in their text before they get to the X antibody form. So if you deal with the level 4 that, at an armor purge and things of that nature, but you also got a chance to spit out more tamers and deal with that. And the fact that you have the ability to pop things continuously with the X antibody Phoenix mode, it will force your opponent to constantly have to deal with the fact that you're going to continuously be popping their line, right? So you attack, and then you put them in this really awkward position, because if they block you, I trigger all my on-deletions effects. But if you don't block me, I still trigger all my on-deletion effects. So it's a really damned if you do, damned if you don't type of situation. So it's really good at forcing those types of situations, particularly in the Rapid Mon lineup. I don't really have any losses against that deck. Now with the Magnamon, I just gotta outswarm them. So most of the time they're sitting on one Magnamon. If you let them get the 2, then it's pretty tricky. But the first time they're only dealing with the 1. Depending on which variant you're going against, either so I'll explain the 2. So vaccine 1 is a little harder than the blue line. The vaccine 1 is harder only because of the fact that a lot of times you're not going to die, and they're going to constantly keep getting tamers in the back, which will help extend their plays and then help them get closer to being able to win the game. Versus going against the blue line. The blue line does play a lot of Digimon, right? So you can constantly have pressure of deleting yourself, and then you can trigger your on-deletions effect. So the blue line is a little easier to deal with than the vaccine, but the vaccine is still straightforward as long as you constantly are forcing them to have to block, or you're constantly able to die within security. You're forcing all of your on-deletions effects, forcing them to constantly have to deal with pressure of deleting their line, because the vaccine line doesn't have a way to trigger the Magnamon until their turn with the TKs. So until they play out the TK to force him to gain the 3K, and then he can't be unaffected, I can swing their block, I trigger the effect, and then pop the line, and then force them to armor purge, and then effect again to pop it again, and then force the second armor purge.
Damn, okay. Would you say, well, this deck, I feel like if I played against it right now, I wouldn't know exactly what you're doing. Do you think you catch a lot of your opponents off guard? Because
yeah, for sure. It's definitely not a deck that is very, very popular in the States. Overseas, they've recently seen a lot more play, especially with the Scramble. Some people like to put Christie back into the deck and things of that nature. One of the worst matchups you can possibly go against is Mirage Galgamon or Imperial Dramon, for obvious reasons, right? If I can't delete myself, then I'm in a very, very, very awful position. And both of those matchups can bounce my line. So if they bounce my line, I've lost all of my ammunition. So in the other matchups that I mentioned before, they have to block me. Otherwise, I'm just dealing constant chip damage regardless, right? Whereas in the Imperial, they don't need to do anything. Okay, cool. I got 5 sources. I'm gonna blast and go into Ace and bounce your line. Or, I can go into Dragon mode, keep it suspended, then following turn go into ace again, right? Like they have a lot of variety in terms of how they want to go about dealing with the Phoenixmon. So those two particular matchups is absolutely horrendous. Anything that can just remove the line without having me get deleted is absolutely terrible.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Zuki. Back to back first place at locals. Thank you for giving us your deck profile.
Yeah, no problem.